Spain is not just a country, it's an epic, a living, breathing saga of conquest and collapse, of love and bloodshed, of civilizations that reached the heavens and empires that crumbled to dust. This story begins 40,000 years ago, in the darkness of prehistory, and it hasn't ended yet. With every generation, someone new picked up the pen and wrote the next chapter. Every people left a mark. Every culture added a new color to this extraordinary canvas. 40,000 years ago, when most of the world was still swallowed by darkness, there were people living in the mountains of northern Spain, and they made art. Deep inside the caves of Altamira, they pressed their fingers against cold stone and painted wild bison and galloping horses with a vividness that still stops you cold today. These weren't rough scratches. They were masterpieces, full of movement, full of life, full of something that can only be called soul. When a Spanish archaeologist discovered them in 1879, he refused to believe they were made by human hands. They looked too alive, too perfect, too modern, but they were real. 40,000 years old and still speaking. These paintings weren't just art. They were a message across time. We were here. We lived. We felt. Around 3,000 years ago, Phoenician sailors left the shores of what is now Lebanon and pushed all the way to the far edge of the Mediterranean. When they arrived, they built a city and called it Gadir. We know it today as Cadiz, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in all of Europe. The Phoenicians came for trade, silver, copper, salted fish. But they also brought something far more lasting: the alphabet, glass-making, new techniques of agriculture. Not long after, the Greeks arrived. They settled along the northeastern coast, bringing their culture, their philosophy, their vineyards and olive groves. They mapped these coastlines. They built cities like Emporion, whose ruins still stand today, still whispering to anyone who'll listen. Then came the Carthaginians. The powerful Barca family had conquered almost the entire Iberian Peninsula. Spain's silver mines were pouring wealth into Carthage like an open vein. But the son of Barca, a young general named Hannibal, had bigger dreams. He didn't want more silver. He wanted Rome destroyed. In 218 BC, Hannibal launched one of the most audacious military campaigns in all of human history. He marched out of Spain with a massive army, including war elephants, crossed the Pyrenees, and then turned north to do the unthinkable. Crossed the Alps in winter. The elephants trembled in the snow. Soldiers died of cold. Supply lines broke down, but Hannibal kept moving. He descended into Italy like a storm, and at the Battle of Cannae, he handed Rome one of the most catastrophic defeats in its history. But Rome didn't fall. The Romans gritted their teeth, refused to surrender, and eventually brought the war back to Hannibal's own doorstep. Spain became Roman territory, but not without a fight. The native people of Spain did not submit quietly. The Wars of Numantia stand as one of the most blood-soaked acts of resistance in all of history. For decades, the people of Numantia, a small city in north-central Spain, held off the Roman legions. Again and again, Rome came. Again and again, Numantia stood. But eventually, Rome surrounded the city completely, cutting off all food, all water, all hope. And when the people of Numantia realized the end had come, they made a choice. They set fire to their own homes. And then they walked into the flames. Rather than be taken as slaves, they chose death on their own terms. This was not defeat. This was defiance. And for centuries afterwards, the name Numantia would ring through Spanish poetry, through political speeches, through the deep national soul of a people who never forgot what it meant to refuse to kneel. But Rome stayed, and something remarkable happened. Spain didn't just become Roman, Spain became essential to Rome. Latin replaced the local languages. Great cities rose from the earth. Roman law flowed through every street. The aqueducts were breathtaking, still standing today, still staggering in their engineering. The Bridge of Alcantara, the Temple of Diana at Emerita Augusta. These weren't symbols of occupation. They were symbols of transformation. And then Spain gave Rome its greatest sons, Emperor Trajan, Emperor Hadrian, the philosopher Seneca, the poet Martial, all of them born on Spanish soil. Spain was no longer a province on the edge. Spain was the heartbeat of the empire. Then the walls began to crack. The Roman Empire was collapsing from the inside, hollowed out by corruption, overstretched by endless wars. From the north, Germanic tribes came pouring across the Pyrenees like a flood. Visigoths, Vandals, Suebi. The civilization Rome had spent centuries building was dismantled in decades. Roads emptied, cities went dark. Medical knowledge, engineering mastery, the art of building, all of it slipped away. Europe entered its dark ages. The Visigoths eventually emerged on top. They mixed with the Roman Spanish population, converted to Christianity, and built their kingdom at Toledo. But their reign was 2 centuries of chaos. Kings assassinating kings, nobles at each other's throats, internal power struggles that never stopped. And while Spain tore itself apart from within, something extraordinary was gathering on the other side of the Strait of Gibraltar. July 711, a Berber Muslim commander named Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed the strait from North Africa with just 7,000 soldiers. The rocky outcrop where he landed would forever carry his name, Jabal Tariq, the Mountain of Tariq, Gibraltar. The story goes that when his soldiers grew fearful, looking back at the sea and wondering if they'd made a terrible mistake, Tariq gave an extraordinary order: burn the ships. There was no going back. There was only forward. Within 3 years, the Muslims had conquered almost the entire peninsula. They called it Al-Andalus. The speed was staggering, made possible partly by the disarray of the Visigoths and partly by the fact that the new rulers treated Jews and Christians with relative tolerance. History was turning a new page. And now we reach one of the most astonishing chapters in all of European history. At its peak in the 10th century, Cordoba was the largest and most advanced city in all of Europe. 1 million people lived there, while London, at that same moment, had perhaps 10,000. The streets of Cordoba were paved with stone and lit at night with oil lamps, while the rest of Europe stumbled around in the dark. Its libraries held 400,000 books. Its physicians performed surgeries that the rest of Europe wouldn't master for another 200 years. The names that emerged from the city still echo through philosophy and science: Ibn Rushd, Ibn Tufayl, Ibn Hazm, Ibn Arabi, towering intellects whose work laid foundations for the European Renaissance. And perhaps most extraordinary of all, Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived side by side, not always without tension, not always in perfect harmony, but in a way that looked, compared to the rest of medieval Europe, like a civilizational miracle. Jews rose to the highest offices of government. Christians learned Arabic and absorbed a culture that would change the world. The Alhambra in Granada, the Great Mosque of Cordoba, palaces of breathtaking beauty, gardens of water and light. These are the inheritance of Al-Andalus, still standing, still drawing millions of visitors every year, still making jaws drop. But the north of Spain had never been fully conquered. In the mountains of Asturias, a Christian commander named Pelayo won a small but ferocious battle in 718 at Covadonga. The Muslims were turned back. It was a spark, and that spark burned for 800 years. The Reconquista, the reconquest, had begun. One by one, the Christian kingdoms of the north gathered their strength. Asturias, Leon, Castile, Navarre, Aragon. Slowly, painfully, generation by generation, they pushed south. Cities were taken, lost, retaken. Centuries of war, centuries of blood, but also centuries of the deepest cultural exchange the medieval world had ever seen. When Christian armies captured a city, they didn't erase what they found. They inherited it. They absorbed it. The Spanish language today is saturated with Arabic. Alcohol, algebra, azure, cotton, pillow. Thousands of words with Arabic roots that are used every single day, often without the speakers even knowing it. Two civilizations fought for 8 centuries, and in fighting became each other. Then came a wedding, and nothing was ever the same again. In 1469, Isabella, heir to the crown of Castile, married Ferdinand, heir to the crown of Aragon. 2 of Spain's greatest kingdoms became one. Spain, in the truest sense of the word, was born. And what followed was an explosion of history unlike anything the world had seen. On the 12th of October, 1492, Christopher Columbus stepped ashore in the Caribbean islands. He thought he'd reached India. He had, in fact, stumbled upon an entirely new world. In a single moment, Spain transformed from a European kingdom into a global empire. The sun, it was said, never set on the Spanish flag. In the decades that followed, conquistadors like Hernán Cortés and Francisco Pizarro toppled empires with shockingly small forces. Acts of daring so extreme, they border on the incomprehensible. But this is also one of the darkest chapters in human history. Millions of indigenous people died through war, slavery, and the diseases Europeans unknowingly brought with them. Smallpox, measles, plague, illnesses that the native populations had no immunity against, swept across continents and killed entire civilizations. Some historians estimate that 90% of the indigenous people of the Americas were dead within a century. The gold and silver of the Americas poured into Spain in rivers. Spain became the richest, most powerful nation on earth, entering the era its own people call the Siglo de Oro, the Golden Century. Philip II ruled an empire that stretched across Spain, Portugal, Latin America, parts of Italy, the Netherlands, and the Philippines. The world trembled, but this dazzling fortune had a fatal flaw. Instead of investing, Spain spent its gold on endless wars. It was a mistake that would cast a long and devastating shadow. And yet, even as the cracks were forming, Spain produced art and literature of staggering genius. Miguel de Cervantes wrote Don Quixote, the first modern novel the world had ever seen. On the surface, it's the story of a half-mad nobleman who thinks he's a knight, tilting at windmills. But beneath that apparent comedy lies the deepest meditation on dreams versus reality, on idealism versus defeat that literature has ever produced. Lope de Vega filled the theaters of Madrid with hundreds of plays. The Greek-born painter El Greco worked in Toledo, producing images that seemed to come from another dimension. Elongated figures, impossible colors, faces burning with spiritual fire. Diego Velázquez painted the royal court with a precision that was almost supernatural. His painting, Las Meninas, remains one of the most analyzed and argued over works in the history of art. Spain was not just conquering the world. Spain was teaching it how to see. In 1588, King Philip II sent 130 warships toward England. This invincible armada was meant to conquer the English, dethrone Queen Elizabeth I, and establish Spanish dominance over Europe. But a ferocious storm rose up. English warships, faster, more maneuverable, tore into the fleet. Half the Spanish Navy went to the bottom of the ocean. Thousands of sailors drowned. When Philip II received the news of the disaster, he said with a kind of heartbroken dignity, "I sent my ships to fight against men, not against storms." Spain remained powerful, but the world was shifting. Holland was rising, France was growing. England was becoming the next great maritime empire. The 17th and 18th centuries brought war, financial crisis, and the slow, painful loss of the colonies. One by one, the nations of Latin America broke free. In 1808, Napoleon Bonaparte made a grave mistake. He invaded Spain, deposed the Spanish king, and placed his own brother Joseph on the throne. He expected it to be easy. He was wrong. The Spanish people erupted. Farmers, priests, women, children, anyone who could hold a weapon fought back. This was the war that gave the world the word guerrilla, little war, because the Spanish fighters attacked from behind hills and trees, cut French supply lines, and vanished like smoke when they needed to. They were everywhere and nowhere. The painter Francisco Goya recorded these years in paintings of harrowing, terrible beauty. The 3rd of May, 1808, showing the cold-blooded execution of Spanish civilians by French soldiers, remains one of the most powerful images of human suffering ever put on canvas. Napoleon was eventually defeated, but the Spain that emerged was scarred beyond recognition. The 19th century was one long wound. Revolutions, coups, wars of independence across Latin America, internal civil conflicts that bled the country dry. In 1898, in a disastrous war with the United States, Spain lost Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. The last fragments of the empire, gone in a matter of months. The shock was so deep that it produced an entire generation of writers and thinkers, called the Generation of 98, who sat in cafes and asked, "What is Spain? What did we once have? What became of us?" These questions weren't defeatism. They were the beginning of an intellectual awakening, a search for identity that would shape Spain for decades to come. And then came the darkest chapter of all. July 1936, General Francisco Franco launched a military uprising against Spain's democratically elected government. The civil war that followed was not just Spain's war, it was the world's war in miniature. On one side, Franco's fascists, backed by Hitler and Mussolini. On the other, the Republican government, supported by the Soviet Union and thousands of international volunteers who came from every corner of the earth. America, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, even Iran, because they believed that if fascism could be stopped anywhere, it should be stopped here. Ernest Hemingway was there, George Orwell was there. Poets and intellectuals from across the world came to fight and to witness. Orwell wrote about it in Homage to Catalonia, one of the most searingly honest books ever written about war and betrayal. 3 years of fighting, 1 million dead. The bombing of Guernica, the first sustained aerial bombardment of a civilian population in history, shocked the world into silence. Picasso painted it in black and white because some horrors are beyond color. Franco won, and he ruled Spain as a dictator for 36 years, until 1975. Opponents were executed. The Catalan and Basque languages were banned. There was no free press, no free speech. While the rest of Western Europe rebuilt and modernized after World War II, Spain stood still, isolated, frozen, controlled. When Franco finally died in 1975, the world held its breath. Would the army seize power? Would there be another civil war? No one knew. What happened next astonished everyone. It's called La Transición, the transition, and it is one of the most remarkable peaceful shifts to democracy in all of modern history. The young king, Juan Carlos I, whom Franco had personally groomed to continue the dictatorship, made a different choice entirely. He chose democracy. Political leaders from the left and the right, from every ideology and region, sat down together at the same table. Communists, socialists, conservatives, regional nationalists, all of them agreed not just to rebuild Spain, but to build something entirely new. They wrote a constitution that guaranteed civil liberties, protected minorities, and enshrined democratic principles. In 1982, Spain joined NATO. In 1986, it joined the European community. The economic boom of the 80s and 90s was extraordinary. In 1992, Barcelona hosted the Olympic Games and showed the world a Spain transformed, vibrant, modern, free. Frank Gehry's gleaming Guggenheim Museum rose in Bilbao. New motorways connected the country. New museums opened. Spain was not just catching up with Europe. Spain was leading it. Today, Spain welcomes nearly 80 million tourists every year, one of the most visited countries on Earth. Its food, its music, its architecture, its light, its people, tapas and paella, flamenco and the Sagrada Familia, the Prado Museum and the running of the bulls, the ancient streets of Toledo and the futuristic skyline of Madrid. But Spain still wrestles with its ghosts. The independence movement in Catalonia reached a crisis in 2017. The wounds of the Civil War, mass graves that are still being excavated, families still searching for the bones of grandparents shot by Franco's forces, have never fully healed. Youth unemployment after the 2008 financial crisis was a generation's worth of pain. The questions don't end, but Spain stands, as it always has. This is a land where 40,000 years ago, human beings painted on cave walls because they needed the world to know they had been here. A land where Phoenicians and Greeks and Romans and Arabs and Visigoths all passed through and all left something behind. A land that conquered half the world and then lost it, that fell into dictatorship and walked peacefully out of it, that produced Cervantes and Velázquez and Picasso and Gaudí, minds that permanently altered how humanity sees and thinks. Spain is not just a country, it is a crossroads, the place where East meets West, where Africa meets Europe, where ancient meets modern, and where all of them, across all those centuries, danced together, fought together, and became something that has never existed anywhere else on Earth. And this story is not over.